Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for coming along for this afternoon's roundtable. Minister, I'm Alastair Long. I'm the UK's Deputy Trade Commissioner for Africa. I live, it's my great pleasure to say, in Cairo, on the outskirts of Cairo, and have done for the last 4 years. But I cover the whole continent of Africa. But in that continent, that wonderful continent, Egypt is a very, very, very significant priority for the UK, as you can imagine, for our trade relationship. And so I'm delighted to welcome again His Excellency Minister Molla here to London to join us this afternoon. This is the third roundtable you've done in a row, Minister, so we're super grateful for that. But you are forgiven if you're feeling a bit tired. And coffee is available, so just prod me and I will bring you a coffee. But no, thank you so much. And I wanted just to start by saying that over the years, I think the UK has enjoyed a very proud relationship with Egypt's energy industry. We are and have been the major investor in that industry for decades, I think it would be right to say, Minister, and we're proud of that contribution and that partnership that we've had, and we want to see it continue. But the UK has also been, as you all know better than me, on a journey these last few years to set out a pathway towards net zero and to approach the topic of decarbonisation, we hope, as a world leader in that area. And a number of our industries are pivoting to become experts in that pathway. And we are now in the world seeking to help other nations adopt that same approach. And it has been a wonderful thing that over the last 2 years, we first hosted COP26 in Glasgow in the UK, but then proudly handed the baton to Egypt to host a wonderful COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh last year, and to continue that hard work of finding a global solution to climate change. And around that, we have established a really strong green partnership in all areas. And we have a bright future, I think, working together to make sure that both our countries enjoy a really strong energy partnership going forward, but multifaceted, that looks at fossil fuels, how to deal with fossil fuels, how to transition, how to bring in new technologies. And that's very much the subject of why we're here today. And so without further ado, I'm going to sit down, allow the Minister, if you wish, to say a few words. And then perhaps we can get to the meat of this session, which is really to be as interactive as possible and to allow you a chance to ask the Minister the questions on your mind and to get into a conversation. So with that, Your Excellency, please.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Long, thank you so much for this introduction. And once again, good afternoon, and thank you for being with us into this afternoon session. And thank you for coming, and thank you for sponsoring. And actually, it is really my sincere pleasure to be with you here this afternoon, and this is part of our continuous efforts engaging with our partners and our potential partners. So normally, as we do the continuous dialogue from our side, my side as government representative for this industry in Egypt with private sector, always in order to make sure that we are aligned and that I'm always able to communicate with the latest development, latest answers to the questions that are in mind. So actually we see now that with the changes and the developments of the transition and towards net zero, so we as energy, oil and gas companies, we are all transitioning and including all aspects of diversified energy to our companies and our portfolio. So to be an integrated, I would say, corporation or companies, and we have seen the progress made during and before and after COP27 vis-a-vis how to decarbonize our industry, and including new aspects as we earlier mentioned, like for example hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, and whatever activities that will open also the opportunity for private sector to get engaged in decarbonization, whether carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and whatever will take in order to make sure that we have also the proper ingredients for a successful transition. I think that the time now is for the comprehensive, I would say, discussions regarding what would it take governments, what would it take companies to make sure that they embark properly and to get fully engaged and with the, I would say, the appropriate balanced economic models for this important milestones that we are taking together. We have always to make sure that we are providing the appropriate and just affordable energy, whatever it is, whatever is the format. But we need to make sure that we are there for providing the markets and the people with their needs of energy. I don't want to talk about much details. I just wanted to say that we in Egypt have definitely adopted many policies, and I think that our strategy has been clear to include transition, to include clean fuels, to include renewables, to include hydrogen. And I think that you have seen a successful COP27 where we demonstrated a commitment. We had many signing, I would say, whether frameworks or MOUs or whatever. And, but at the end of the day, these are all potential projects. We need to see them realized on the ground. This is from one side. As for our existing oil and gas industry, upstream, downstream, midstream, we have also been committed to make sure that we decarbonize our industry. We have joined the Global Methane Pledge, and we are now in the way to also put a realistic date for our net zero commitment. Since it is not, I would say, a sole decision of my ministry, it is a collective decision of the government and the country. So we are still working on that, but definitely this will get out soon. We have updated our NDCs, and as I say, we are really walking the talks. So with that, I would like really to have an open discussion with your good selves. Perhaps you may like to ask questions and make it an open discussion session, if you don't mind, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much. So the floor is open. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak first.
Yes, if I can ask a question which probably affects both of you. We have the supply, we have the demand, we have the technologies. Finance is clearly a problem. I'm just interested to find out how that can be bridged. I know we spoke about price point earlier on, but someone has to move. And it seems to me that it's at a governmental level, not at a private sector level. Banks won't lend money until they have a price point that they know of for the long-term future. Private sector won't get the money from the banks. Progress won't happen. And And it seems that there needs to be a higher level of agreement where there's a clear cut between the UK government and Egypt, which can initiate, set the whole ball moving. I was just wondering whether you can comment on that, or whether there's anything in development that would give a timeline of some assurance for your industry.
I'd like to start.
I'd be very happy if you would start on that one, Minister.
I wanted to think at that.
Quick, I'll put
I
myself.
wanted to buy time, you see.
Well, can I just ask, because I've missed some of this morning's discussion, with apologies. Are you talking about the volatility in the currency pricing? Are you talking about availability of forex? What are the underlying issues you're getting at here that are the barrier?
The barrier is essentially our price point for hydrogen, gas, all of that, to pay off the long-term investments to get security. Now, someone's got to be a first mover to do that. So we've had BP in, there's lots of people who can produce the hydrogen, produce the low carbon solutions, but it is more expensive than natural gas.
I can jump in now. Yeah. So, can I know your name, please?
My name is Mike Shepherd.
And Mike, who do you represent? Sorry,
We represent a UK company who does works in the oil and gas sector, and we're a package integrator.
So you are an oil and gas company.
We support the oil and gas majors. Yes.
Excellent. So this is actually music to my ears, because this means that you have the same question that I do have. And this is the frustration that the oil and gas industry had prior to COP27. So we all talk about our commitments towards I would say reducing global warming. We're making sure that we reduce emissions, and at the end of the day, they say, okay, you are penalized because you are still producing your hydrocarbons. I'm not talking about I mean this industry. Then everybody is talking about hydrogen, and everybody is talking about clean fuels, which is fine. And the concept is there, and we all approve about and agree on that. But then, and this was always the debate, and this is what we all said during the panels and during the discussions in COP27 and in preparation of COP27 everywhere. Please listen to us. We need to have a time frame. We need to have a transition period, a reasonable transition period, because as you rightly said, which is first, the chicken or the egg? Why is that? Because in this case, who is going to invest? Who is going to bring the funds? And this is what is the challenge around this important issue. Therefore, to tell you the truth, we in this case, when now you focus on Egypt, from my side as a government in this regard, what I will be doing is to allow and to facilitate the construction and the investment of these important projects, developing clean fuels, whether it is hydrogen, green ammonia, green whatever. We are ready for that. And from our side as well, we'll be providing all the incentives that is needed, and we'll be providing the proper locations for sun and wind, and we'll avail all the proper infrastructure for the release and the exports of this clean fuels, whatever form it will be. But at the end of the day, the challenge will still remain. Who are the off-takers? Who are going to buy these expensive molecules, green molecules, unless they have a market or they are not expensive for I would say for marketing it or for selling it or for consumption. So therefore, policies, we are a developing country, so I would not tell you that we are going to invest in this. I cannot, and I don't have the R&D that will enable me to do this, so I will not take the initiative. What I'm going to do is taking the advantage of our position nearby European markets, which is our potential customer, geographic location, sun and wind, and will facilitate and will enable and will be a catalyst for this to happen on our land with the proper policies and proper codes, including, as I said, our infrastructure. So, and earlier we were discussing in the previous session, what will help? What is happening now that the prices of LNG has decreased significantly lately. So this will encourage the investment and more and will expedite the investments in green hydrogen and all this kind of clean fuels or green fuels. And we will see the countries and the scientists who are having all these capabilities of R&D will invest a lot in this kind of technologies, and we will see it happening earlier than anticipated. So, to tell you the truth, I think this is my answer. I mean, I cannot be more than that by saying that still oil and gas will be, of course, in the markets for some time, definitely, as we know, as long as the complete market of hydrogen or green hydrogen is mature. I don't know when and for how long. So,
can I just add a few thoughts, and then I'd quite like to come back to you actually, because I think you have some ideas within your question about what you would like to see. So I might just quiz you a bit more on that. So first of all, I think the Minister's right that there's talk of where we are now, and there's talk of a world where hydrogen is the fuel and is, you know, and there's a developed hydrogen market for it. Hydrogen is used across various applications, be it heavy goods boats through to cars, through to everything, which doesn't exist yet. And then there's a gap in between. And actually, some of the conversations I witnessed at COP27, not the fault of our wonderful host, but the fault of the conversations themselves, that gap wasn't properly addressed. Of fine, we're talking about the ideal and where we are now, but we're not talking about how we get there. So from that, just to say that I think our own British government policy on fossil fuels has widely been misunderstood. And so just to explain that, and not, you know, that's not a problem per se, but it was sort of brought in as a ban on all support for fossil fuels overseas from the British government, which is not actually what it is. And for me, I think it would better have been described as a mechanism to try and support transition. What it is saying is that we see a future where fossil fuels plays a dramatically reduced role in energy consumption in the world. Not a zero role, but a dramatically reduced role. And that we cannot honestly support projects which would leave foreign countries trapped in fossil fuel production in that world and then find that they're losing out because they didn't adapt. But also we recognise that there is a need to steer this course quite fast because of the way that our climate is being impacted. However, what the policy will do is allow us to support fossil fuel production where it is tied to a clear Paris-aligned strategy, so for emissions reduction, where there is no viable renewable alternative. And I think viability has to be assessed as not just could you do renewables, but actually practically can you do it? Do you have the ability to mobilise it, to finance it, to build it at scale in that time frame, etc. And where it's not going to leave a stranded asset. And those are the three key tests. Now, a lot of projects pass those three key tests. And so a lot of gas to power projects, a lot of adapting of fossil fuel technology has been able to pass those tests and therefore we've been able to support it as the British government and find ways to support it. So that is aimed at I think a more pragmatic and realistic understanding of what needs to take place. What I don't do, and this is where I want to come back to you because I'd like to understand what you want us to do. Because what I don't think we, or particularly my trade operation at the moment, is doing is trying to make the hydrogen market. We're not trying to mature it to the point of being an established, I mean, there is a hydrogen market already, of course, for industry, but we're not trying to establish the hydrogen market. What we're trying to do is work with partners like Egypt who have a clear strategic location and compatible location for major hydrogen production and logistics. We're trying to work with them to grow a first mover advantage, because that will be good for Egypt, but one that is also, you know, testament to the long-standing energy partnership we've had, so that we can support them in that with some of the technologies we have. And I hope, and I think you're seeing this Minister Molla with us, you'll agree that the UK has some fantastic hydrogen technology and industries, that we want to be part of that. That again sounds a bit aspirational. That sounds like something we're going to build for the future, but that you know, we are taking this in steps. Now, if you think there is a way that we can, through a governmental partnership, build that out further, then I'd really like to know, and how we can address the immediate sales issues that you talked about.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think our perception, and I guess it's more focused around the UKF side, which is, you know, linked to where you are, is that it's quite prescriptive, and it's got a very narrow view on what is suitable for investment. So potentially a blue hydrogen project, which I know the Minister was talking about as a potential way to get volume of hydrogen into the Egyptian market, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That is not a way that UKF can support it, because it is still using natural gas as a source of supply. And I think that's our position.
Well, let me give a challenge to everybody in this room. If you've had a no UK government support for a project in the energy space that you think has clear future value, i.e. it is cleaning up an aspect of the energy industry, or it is providing a means of a country moving into the hydrogen world or whatever, please come and challenge us, my side of the house. It doesn't need to be UKF because we work hand in hand, but challenge my side of the house to see if there's a way of making that project fit, because 90% of the time there has been my experience. And I've had a number of schemes come to me where we've been able to turn it into something even better that then meets the test. I could give you an example in Nigeria where there is a gas flaring project, and we've had a look at that, and we think that there is a way to still support that project, but to add further carbon capturing technology into the mix to enable it. That then becomes something UKEF can support. We can do the same thing in Egypt, I think. If you show us the plans and where you're hitting a barrier, and Wafair is our energy lead in Egypt, and so put it on Wafair's desk, and let us challenge us to find a way for you, because I'm fairly confident sometimes we can. I think we're there, and then there. Is that okay? Yeah.
Alastair, thank you. And Minister, thank you for the discussion and also for the panel with me this morning. I'd like to pick up on the theme of decarbonisation and flare gas reduction, and also your global methane pledge, because it's great to see the leadership that you've got, the vision you've got. It's also great to see, and I should call out some companies somewhere in the room, Pharos, Capricorn, Apache, they've all done excellent flare gas capture projects. But these are projects that can actually really make money today. They are projects that decarbonise, improve energy security, and the scale is quite significant. In fact, Joe Biden quoted on our research in his closing comment at COP27. He said there's 4 BCM, 4 billion cubic meters of gas that could be captured. That's billions of dollars per year that really could make a real difference. And these are in discrete projects, many of which, you know, I know about. We track every gas flare from satellite every day from space, and we provide real-time intelligence. We know exactly where these opportunities are, how big they are. We've also done a lot of work to figure out how much it would cost, what the benefit is, how you structure a deal. And we've got these deals that are ready to go, or nearly, and I'd like to find a way that we can accelerate that. And I'd like to sort of draw on some of the great work that the UK has done here. UK used to be called the Oil and Gas Authority, it's now called the North Sea Transition Authority. What NSTA has been doing is it's been trying to open up the market, by which I mean trying to enable different elements of the industry to work together in a slightly more collaborative way to unlock opportunities. So, for example, if company A flares here, company B has this pipeline. Well, you know, let's put these two together in a creative commercial framework and actually unlock it. And I think there's great opportunity for Egypt to do some of that joined up thinking, powered by data that's independent, because you can't always rely on the data that the operators give you, and then seize that 4 BCM, you know, it's $3 billion per year, you know, thousands of dollars per second of great opportunity that's right up everyone's street. The final comment I would say is that sometimes it's difficult to finance this, maybe alluding to your point, Alastair, because some banks will say, but it's more investment in fossils. But actually, I would repeat the phrase, the mantra that investments in this kind of stuff is not only consistent with your NDCs, the Global Methane Pledge, it makes money, but it's some of the best carbon abatement tons you can deliver per dollar spent. So, you know, the world is there. Let's seize it and make Egypt be the world leader. Do you agree?
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course, definitely I agree, and I'm happy that you know that we have in place important project for gas flaring and identified and in the implementation phase already, and we have many other potential projects as well. And actually, in his opening speech in our COP27 in the Decarbonization Day, Mr. John Kerry was saying that this is the opportunity, and that's why he was supporting to be with us opening the Decarbonization Day. I believed in what we are talking about, so that's why there is a thin line between oil and gas industry and what we are talking about and what we were accused about. So therefore, methane was part of this good, important savings that we can do, and among which also gas flaring is some good savings, and so it is of benefit for the country, the world, and definitely the economy. So as you say, if there are also ready-made deals, as you said, that we can benefit out of the experience that is implemented here in the UK, that will be good for us to expedite our journey, especially that we had put into our roadmap, the methane roadmap, Sharm el-Sheikh with methane roadmap, some milestones which we need then to accelerate, having received or with engagement of best practices like in the UK, to have this in place that would accelerate and help us develop further projects, rather than taking each and to tailor each proposal and each economic model one by one. It will take us some further time. So thank you for that, and we agree, of course, on what you said. Thank you.
Are you already working in Egypt?
We work with a few clients in Egypt, yes, to to help them to get an independent view of flaring, but also to help them to improve their operations, but also to find those investment opportunities. So, yes.
Great. Just to hear it. And on the banking question, like UKEF, there is, if you're putting up money, you want a higher level of assurance that what you're supporting is a supported project, if you like. So I understand why UKEF take a more cautious approach to our policy than perhaps I do. But I am able to work through the policy and then talk to UKEF and come to a position. I've done the same with banks. So I have looked at projects and then written to a bank to say, we have decided this is compliant with our policy. So think about that as well, because that can also be an option for you. If you need an extra level of comfort with the bank, we can maybe help. We were here next, I think.
Thank you. So my name is Alexandra Thomas. I work for Neptune Energy. This morning, you spoke, Minister, about decarbonisation of our industry, and we spent a lot of time talking about hydrogen. I wondered if you'd share with us your vision for carbon capture and storage in Egypt, and how you would see that being implemented if there was an opportunity to do that.
What happened is that we have a lot of opportunities for carbon capture, definitely, in our systems. Whether in the upstream or in the midstream, in the downstream, really, and we have a diverse, complex operations everywhere in the country. And I think that we'll do big savings out of it, and a big opportunity for companies and private sector to come and take some opportunities there for some business opportunities for them. Well, this is part of the roadmap that we've put for addressing these challenges of carbon capture. But what happened is that from the other side is so far we don't have a code in Egypt regarding storage, for example, and this is something that we are in discussion with Ministry of Environment. Our current the concession agreements that you all have does not talk about storing in the depleted fields or gas fields or whatever, or reservoirs. So it's only talking about extracting and developing the gas or oil from there. Then also to re-inject, for example, CO2 or whatever there, it needs a proper jurisdiction or a proper code or a process that would cover us, because at the end of the day, these properties, which is the depleted fields, are not EGPCs any longer. When it is empty, we should hand it over to the government. So therefore, there is a gray area there. And actually, I was asking and I was seeking the help from different partners. And we asked for some consultants as well to give us their best practices in their operations, where they operate in their countries or wherever across the globe, whether there is an existing code which we can take and help our Ministry of Environment and perhaps adapt some of the terms or whatever there, and try to put it in some legislation so that to cover, because you don't know what would happen in 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. Nobody can tell what would look like the CO2 having them back into the reservoirs. So we need to cover the investor and the government as well. So that's why it needs to be in a code. This is from one side regarding the storage itself. Carbon capture is something that we all work on, and we have several projects in place. And I think that there are many of these projects are in process in different operations, not that many. We are trying to take advantage of what we have spoken in COP27, and then we have formed some important committees at EGPC and at the ministry with the talents that are needed in order to identify the projects and identify the partners and the companies that would help us, the contractors, I mean. And the however, I am not happy with the pace and the speed that we are progressing, and therefore we need to have, normally when you have an exam, you go and study because the exam is after tomorrow. After the exam, you get happy and you relax. So this is why we did well preparing ourselves for COP27. After that, took us some time, and now we are getting prepared for COP28. So we started to collect our documents again and to see our companies and our partner and potential technology provider. In this case, it's not that complex, by the way, but it needs to be organized. Therefore, we have, as I said, at EGPC and at the ministry, we have the people in the departments that are responsible. And I think, again, gets back to economics, because the company would say, what's in it for him to go there? So that's why when we said we need to look at perhaps ready deals or whatever that will help us. So when I go and tell them you are very slow, so my team are telling me, well, we are doing the economic model because it differs from one business case to another. So unfortunately, there is no one size fit all, but at the same time, we are in the learning curve. I don't want to say that we are late, but the time has elapsed, but I think that at the same time, we were talking earlier about the lead time for many of the components of the supply chain that now has been impacted by the global slowdown in manufacturing. Therefore, also part of the supplies are being delayed. However, again, if economics are that bright and that I would say attractive, things would speed up. To conclude, I think that again, partners and on-the-ground companies that have operations at upstream or downstream or whatever should and would be really or should take, I would say, the lead in showing up how also they are committed. And therefore, some of the companies, perhaps at some certain time, when this has been a challenge, they have diversified. So, and they left these operations because it was costly, not feasible, not economic. So therefore, it is now on the laps of current operators or current companies, whether with the government, definitely. So again, there is a plan. It is a little bit slowed down in the implementation. However, I believe that we started again to energize it since we are getting closer to COP28. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to come back at all?
No, not really. Just to say maybe June has a very clear strategy that we're moving into carbon capture and storage, and our intention is to store as much carbon as we emit by 2030.
All right.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much. I'm René Levin from John Crane. It's a part of Smith Group, one of the British biggest manufacturers. You might know them well from the airport scanners. That's one of our sister companies. I have 2 points, if I may, and the first one is just quickly coming back to your question before, what can be done differently? I mean, you know, from my personal opinion, I feel in terms of if you think about where you put subsidies or incentives from legislation, and we heard today several times like one of the biggest bottlenecks is actually the offtake. I mean, demand. I feel if you would channel incentives towards demand, a lot of stuff on the production and transportation, I mean, all the things would sort themselves out. Of course, I think a lot of companies in the industry say really good for hydrogen, but I would say maybe even wider for decarbonization. Right? Yeah. I mean, if you incentivize, for example, a refinery, a steel plant, whatever, for doing the right thing, I mean, then you would have a demand, right? I mean, yeah, I would be very interested to hear your opinion on that one.
May I start on this one?
Yes, please.
So it's not just because of your accent, but I'm going to refer to the German. But I'm going to refer to the German approach on hydrogen, because I think the complexity of this question is also about what individual nations need and what they're doing and what their strategy is. And for the UK, we are not looking to procure significant hydrogen from the international market to bring into the UK. We're looking to create an indigenous hydrogen production capability. There will be some hydrogen that comes into the UK market. In that, we are very different to Germany. So Germany needs to find an international significant supply of hydrogen and has identified that as a key requirement of its industrial strategy. And so what the Germans have done is to create money both to incentivize hydrogen manufacture overseas and then also to provide an offtake agreement as well. So for our very good friends like the Egyptians, that is like being given both your Christmas and birthday presents at once. You know, you're both invested in and told we will buy what you make from what we've invested in. We're not in that position because that's not the requirement of the UK market. What I do think we have, which makes the UK still a powerful partner, is some fantastic technology that can sit in the middle of that and be a part of making things happen. And somewhat fortuitously, we don't normally work entirely alone. We do work with German partners and others to deliver things. And so already UK companies are, some of you in this room, are part of solutions that are being employed in Egypt and elsewhere. At a governmental layer, it makes it very difficult for us to look at the sort of incentive structures you're talking about when it comes to hydrogen, because it doesn't fit with the market that we're creating. I believe, but I don't understand it well because I'm international, that there are incentives and other models in the UK to create the UK ecosystem that we need, particularly up in the northwest and so on. But that's quite a different proposition. I think it is useful though, if you're doing business overseas, to understand those varying offers from countries and how those are reflected in their domestic needs. Two other points to incentivizing other chemicals and so on, it can look different for us where our requirements are different. So we do have, we may be able to do more of what you're suggesting, for example, and this is another part of your portfolio, Minister, on critical minerals. And on things like that, we may be able to, because we then are looking to procure from the international market. But specifically in the hydrogen space, I don't think it's going to be something the UK looks to do. That
it makes pretty much sense now.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to comment.
No, I don't think that they can have more.
That's very good. Okay, yeah. If you have a comment on that, actually what you mentioned about technology companies, that was my second point. I mean, from us from the perspective of a manufacturer, where I was very pleased to hear several times today the supply chain, the importance of supply chain mentioned. So, I mean, we are looking very much into development of technologies that is needed to enable those projects. And, I mean, at the moment, most of these hydrogen projects, for example, also carbon capture, are working with state-of-the-art technology. But we see, like, when you really want to scale up, you need to develop new technology. And it was very interesting to hear that in Egypt, you, for example, have these decarbonization initiatives. As a manufacturer, we would be very much interested how to be part of such initiatives. I also see that collaboration, partnership is an essential part. I mean, no one is able to stem the whole load themselves. So we are very open, and that goes into your point, UK, I mean, I represent a UK company, even as a German now. The technology part is very important, and I feel that we can play a very crucial role there. We would be more than happy to really participate in some of those early projects to help getting it to scale. So if you could give us some advice how we can participate in such projects like the decarbonization.
No, this is easy. We'll share with you contacts here, and then we'll get you with us into the our roadmap and where you can fit at any of the different elements, and we can take it from there. Don't worry. It's easy. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much
for showing up.
I would have done the German example, even if you'd spoken with a French accent. So just to be clear on that.
I'm still for European collaboration.
I'm Mohammed Faid, the General Manager for the Middle East for Fars Energy. So thanks for the reference. I think there is one point and one question I have. The first point is, first step, we believe in decarbonization is working on efficiency. So gas to power, reducing venting, reducing flaring. Those are all economic projects. And we set an example in El Fayoum, in Egypt, making money through better decarbonization projects that's efficient. And the second part is we set aside emission management funds. So at certain oil price, every barrel we sell, we set aside 0.25 dollars, so quarter a dollar. So we invest in the emission management. So this is through technology development or R&D or an actual pilot of an existing project. So setting that money aside makes a difference. The first question here was about the gap in the funding. You have supply, you have demand, and the gap in the funding was purely addressing the UK government support and the local banks. My question is slightly different. Are the Egyptian banks incentivized to provide loans that would actually work towards renewable green energy in Egypt? So if we come up with some percentage of the initial capital, are the local banks in Egypt willing to support and provide loans?
Yeah, definitely. They can be part of. Actually, they are of course engaged, and they are partner to our industry in general, and they can be part of important syndications, because what happens is that everybody now, when you talk green, so you will find a lot of banks, a lot of investors, and a lot of funds happy to get involved in these investments. So definitely Egyptian banks will be a part of this efforts as well. Definitely.
Anyone else want to come in? Did you want to come back on that?
No, I appreciate the support. I think we are talking to several banks and we see some positive results. And I think the government provides an amazing support. Being in the ground makes a difference.
A very last point, but linked to
a French accent, you see?
We are colleagues.
Oh, right. Perfect.
Sorry. No problem. Yeah. I know I cannot hide my French accent, fortunately. I wish I could.
No, not at all.
Well, just a quick question, yes, linked to what was previously answered on CCUS. So the regulatory issue that remains to be solved at the moment, does it also mean that that blue hydrogen, for example, would be off the table until this problem is solved? Is it
no, blue hydrogen is there. I mean, we are doing gray hydrogen already, as you know, in our refineries. So to make it blue is easy. It's part of our business. Don't worry. So, and these are quick wins. No, don't worry at all. I'm going to talk about storage so far, and this is something that we want to scale it up. And because we are talking about carbon credit and all the stores, so we want to have all the entire value chain. So that's why I mentioned the storage itself as part of the total value chain, including the carbon credit and so forth. But for blue hydrogen, we're ready tomorrow.
If I may ask, I mean, you mentioned there are already some carbon capture facilities operating in Egypt. What is currently being done with the CO2 that's captured?
Well, we are using them somehow in some of our fertilizers, some of our other industries that need to be injected. They are not that much of volumes, therefore it is still manageable. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So you make it easy for me. So no more questions. No more questions regarding oil and gas, which is more exciting actually.
With one more.
Sorry, just one more. Andrew Fair from Energy. I guess, what would you encourage new companies looking to invest in oil and gas assets in Egypt to have as their sort of top priorities in thinking about decarbonisation?
So can you elaborate more on the question?
Yeah, we're a new company looking to invest in oil and gas assets in Egypt. Keen to understand what, from the ministry's standpoint, priorities for new companies coming in. Obviously, existing players have assets which either require gas monetization, gas capture. How would you be thinking in terms of a new company coming into Egypt? What should they?
Are you just to be clear then, you're looking to make an investment into an aspect of it, or you're bringing a technological solution to?
We're looking to diversify our existing oil and gas portfolio.
Right.
So
The oil and gas portfolio itself, yeah. That's fine, and this was the question when I was saying we want to talk about oil and gas, so this is more exciting. So actually we are increasing our portfolio and adding more players, more comers, and definitely you have made some studies on Egypt and on our market and our oil and gas industry, and I think that you have seen that we have different size of companies, so super major oil companies to regional to small to independents to local. Definitely we have now as we speak, the idea of a new entrant is how we would address, rightly said, how we would address and add value. It's not a matter now of bringing some investment, some money to get into to buy out a company that wants to change its shareholding or something. No, the idea is what added value will be having, especially in this transition period. So with what it takes to talk about decarbonization or less emissions or best practices that you had in other operating countries. But this will not hinder or not preempt. The main goal is to increase oil production. I cannot hide and I cannot say no. Definitely, it will be a priority for me. But taking into consideration, why I'm saying that, because I am a net importer of oil, so definitely oil and products. So as much as we produce locally, as much as you reduce my imports, so I will be much interested in this. But meanwhile, since you are an international or foreign company coming in, so you need to bring in with you some best practice. Otherwise, and this is something that I'm always telling my people in the parliament, so why don't you expand your national company? Yeah, we expand our national company. We can give them all the concessions and all the acreage. It's a national company. But where then the technology? Where then the best practices? Where is the R&D? Where is the best practices that will be adopted? So we need to have interactions between different companies, different cultures, different technologies, we have American companies, we have European companies, we have Chinese, we have Gulf countries companies. So this mix is giving also the flavor and the integration between different companies, and they are giving us their best practices through the joint venture. So we have joint venture operations. So, and this is how we be seen as one of the most advanced industries in Egypt because of the best practices that we get from our partners. That's why we are ahead of other industries in Egypt. So therefore, definitely, and the idea of having to attract new companies to Egypt is, while you present your business model and your business plan, that will include addressing these challenges. So of decarbonization and so definitely I would be looking for that as a priority, of course. And we are welcoming you, and we have several bid rounds now currently, and perhaps if you get into our Egypt upstream gateway, so you can see the database that you need, the data room, I mean, and you can get all your information, and perhaps later on we can have some visits to the ministry and to EGPC. We can bring them. I have at least to explain what are how is the terms, what are the challenges, to answer your questions and so forth. So anyway, so you are welcome anytime.
Well, thanks. Sorry. Yeah. Just remind me to come back to one of your points, Your Excellency, around you mentioned that one of your strategies, if I understood well, is to invest in R&D also outside of your country. What would that mean for you?
Me?
Yes. Is that,
I don't think
you want to encourage
I'm
investment?
saying I'm going to encourage the companies and the best practice to bring in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
You have seen a developing country. I'm not saying that we are in this position yet. I mean, that's part of identifying the problem, identifying who you are. So we need to be honest when talking about who are we.
There are some investors doing that, though, that I can talk to you about, that are looking at investing in technologies here in the UK and in Europe that might then have utility in Egypt and other places. Particularly Egypt is one of the destinations they're thinking about, actually. So I can talk to you about those.
It's a big market, 110 million people. It's a growing demand and good geographic location whereby connectivity to neighboring countries and to the European markets is good. I think that Egypt is a good place where oil and gas investment are doing fantastically well, and I think the revenues and the rate of returns on the investments, the oil and gas in companies are really decent. Plus, we have a very stable fiscal regime and concession agreements that we have. Very stable, very good, and proven over the years. We're very balanced, and you have seen lately important companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron coming in. So it wouldn't have meant except that it is a good proposal and a good and balanced one. It caters for small, medium, and big companies, and at the end of the day, also we are open for discussions. And I think that we have had over the years, as I said, different size of companies, even national and regional companies and local companies, independent companies, together with the big scale, as we mentioned before. So, and perhaps when you talk about, and this is important also to mention, perhaps when you talk, well, Egypt economy, I don't know what, stability, that's fine. For oil and gas, no, this is a separate industry that is an international industry treated like everywhere in the world and has its credibility, has its stability, has its skills, talents, experience, infrastructure. And as I said, no wonder that we see lately many of the big major companies coming, not only for that, taking the position in Egypt for a regional cooperation, as you know. So, and I'm not talking about it because I am there, the minister, but also my predecessors and my successors will do the same. I mean, it is a mature, very well developed industry in Egypt, and I think it is always evolving and dynamic, progressing with the changes and adapting itself day after day. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for the interesting session.
Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I would like to just second that, what you said, because I represent Shell, which is probably one of the largest in the country. And for all the new, we are very privileged to be working in Egypt. It's over 100 years. The partnership that we have with the Egyptian government is exemplary. It is tough but fair, as we would say. One of the things that you just said, Your Excellency, is that we do have a lot of pushbacks from center around economic condition in the country, sanctioning projects and stuff. And we say, show us one time when Egypt defaulted on payments. Show us one time when Egypt defaulted on paying receivables for its partners. And they get silenced. And I would say that indeed, everything that you've said is something that we feel day in and day out. And if there is a message to people who want to come, we are very privileged to be working there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And by the way, I thank you so much, because actually I did not mention Shell. However, I just wanted to prove that still we are attracting big, super major companies. Shell is a super major, of course, but is the first company in Egypt. So not only 110 years, 110 years already. So it is the first company to come to Egypt during the last century, actually, yeah. And they had put also the first refinery, 1910. So I want to say that not only the first discovery and oil production, but also first refinery. And this is an example. And since then, they have never left, and whether upstream, sometimes downstream, but nevertheless, the flag of Shell has always been there. So thank you for the comment, and thank you all again for being with us.
Can I just pick up two further points that you made, just in closing? One is that you said we're always evolving, and I think, you know, part of the purpose of today's discussion was really to highlight that that is true about what is happening in Egypt. The industry is evolving fast and vibrantly, and the energy mix in Egypt is really quite attractive when you look at it. And so within that, there is always new opportunity to support this project. The second thing you mentioned, Minister, was that you're open, and you have indeed been open today to be with us, to join us, to sit here, to take questions. And I know that if anybody has any follow-up you wish to highlight to the Minister's team or to my team, that you will do that, and that will be well received. So thank you very much for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Long. Thank you.
Thank you all.